When we discuss climate forecasting and financial markets, we usually talk about how climate forecasting might help the financial sector by providing better estimates of climate-related risks for reinsurers or for mortgage lenders and so on. But financial markets can also give us inspiration about how we can improve climate forecasting. Markets are a powerful mechanism for eliciting information from many different sources and aggregating that information together. And the problem of how to combine different types of expertise and different types of models into unified and actionable forecasts for decision makers is a major challenge for climate science. The Crucial initiative uses a market-based mechanism to synthesize diverse climate forecasting expertise into collective forecasts, and it aims to become a new way of allocating funding for climate forecasting research. Financial markets, like the stock market and futures markets, perform what economists call information discovery as a side effect of their main role, which is enabling the transfer of assets or the transfer of risks. But prediction markets are special markets whose main purpose is to aggregate knowledge and information from different sources into probability forecasts. They use contracts called event contracts, which pay out a fixed amount, for example €1, if a specified event occurs. These contracts are bought and sold on an exchange, and the prevailing price can be interpreted as the probability that the specified event will occur according to the collective intelligence of the people participating in the market. If this all sounds to you a bit like gambling, you are not alone. The distinctions between gambling, futures markets, and prediction markets can be very, very fuzzy. Prediction markets have become very fashionable recently, with platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket seeing billions of dollars of trading every month on event contracts related to sports, politics, sports, cryptocurrency, and sports. Did I mention sports? Over 80% of the activity on Kalshi is tied to sports events. In fact, these platforms are essentially sports betting exchanges that have branded themselves as prediction markets to get around historically strict state-level laws against online gambling in the United States. As I said, the distinction between prediction markets and gambling is fuzzy. A very important distinction between commercial platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket on the one hand, and Crucial on the other hand, is that Kalshi and Polymarket are zero-sum. The rewards to people who get it right must come from the losses of people who get it wrong. For a market to function, it must be able to attract people who will lose money. But Crucial is positive-sum because its markets have a sponsor who effectively puts up a prize for accurate forecasts. It's the opposite of traditional gambling because it's like having a bookmaker that wants to lose money to bettors in return for good information. The market mechanism allows that prize to be distributed in proportion to the contributions that each participant makes to the accuracy of the collective forecast. Crucial does not need to attract so-called dumb money to subsidize the production of forecasts. In fact, because Crucial markets are sponsored, participants don't even have to pay to take part. Instead, they are invited for their expertise and they're allocated credits on the platform. But these credits are backed by real cash provided by Crucial's funder, the SCORE Foundation for Science, which is the philanthropy arm of the French reinsurer. Participants consist of teams, mainly from British universities, but we would like to expand our roster of teams and bring in a wider array of expertise. Crucial's prediction market platform was specifically designed for predicting climate-related risks. As well as markets with simple binary or a small number of outcomes that you find on platforms like Kalshi, Crucial can support markets with highly granular outcome spaces and two-dimensional outcome spaces to predict two quantities simultaneously, generating implied joint probability distributions. This is an example of a one-dimensional market for the number of hurricanes that would occur during the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. There were 21 contracts corresponding to the number of hurricanes from 0 to 20 or more. This is a snapshot of the market prices on the 20th of June. The prices of each of the contracts were set by a market-making algorithm based on the relative popularity of each outcome. Remember that the price of each outcome can be interpreted as the probability of it occurring, so the market generates a probability distribution for the number of hurricanes, and that distribution can evolve in real time as new information becomes available to the participants. The graphic shows how the probability distribution implied by the market prices evolved from when the market opened in May to the end of the hurricane season at the end of November. Initially, the prices broadly reflected forecasts of hurricane activity issued by groups like Colorado State University and the UK Met Office, but these evolved in real time based on actual activity or a lack of activity in the Atlantic Basin. As I mentioned, Crucial can also support two-dimensional markets which simultaneously predict two variables. This example was a proof of concept that jointly predicted the monthly average temperature and the monthly rainfall in the UK. The market shown was for June 2018, which turned out to be one of the hottest Junes on record. The black dots are historical Junes for reference. You can see how the market produced a joint probability distribution that evolved as new forecasts and observations became available, converging on the actual outcome. The purpose of this market was to demonstrate that a two-dimensional market with thousands of possible outcomes can work. Crucial is about to open several new markets. One uses a two-dimensional outcome space to jointly predict the number of Atlantic hurricanes and the number of Pacific typhoons that will occur this year. This market generates a joint probability distribution for hurricanes and typhoons, which is potentially useful to reinsurers who are exposed both to hurricane risk in the US and typhoon risk in Japan. Another set of markets jointly predicts the phase of El Niño Southern Oscillation and the Indian Ocean Dipole, which is essentially the Indian Ocean analogue of El Niño. Both of these interannual oscillations affect the South Asian monsoon, which is economically very important to the Indian subcontinent, and we have another market for forecasting what the total all-India rainfall will be during the summer monsoon season. We believe that well-designed prediction markets are a new and more effective way of synthesizing different forms of climate expertise and different modeling approaches, and they could also be a more efficient way of distributing funding for climate forecasting, one that incentivizes accuracy and avoids the inefficiencies involved in writing and reviewing grant proposals. If you come from an institution that might be interested in participating in our prediction markets for climate-related risks, please get in touch.